There was a 12-year-old boy. He responded to the invitation of our Lord, one of our worship services. He walked down the aisle. His heart was just as full of faith as any man or woman you ever met. Our hearts rejoiced. He confessed with his mouth his faith in Jesus Christ. And we wept with him as he said with his lips, I believe that Jesus is the Christ, the Son of the living God. He was immersed in baptism for the remission of his sins. We all came to hug him. We sang, we welcomed him to our family. We all threw our arms around him. Some of us adults felt like he was ours. Maybe we had had a hand in bringing him to this great decision in his life. And we watched him as he grew. We watched him as he did just everything that he was asked to do. He was determined. He was never going to say, I can't. He was always going to say, when asked to do something for Christ, I'll try. I'll try. And Lord, we rejoiced. He was growing tremendously. He would even bring a devotional talk course once in a while. He'd come to camp, he'd lead a song, he'd lead a prayer, he'd do a devotional talk for us. There's just nothing this young man wouldn't do. And we looked at him and we thought, what potential. What a great servant for the Lord we have before us. And then something began to happen. At about the age of 16 or 17, right along there, we began to notice a change in him. We weren't right sure that we understood what was going on, but we definitely knew something's going on with him. He wasn't as frequent in our services as he used to be. We're now having to beg him to come to camp. And if he did come, you weren't going to get him to lead a song. You weren't going to get him to stand on his feet anymore and lead a prayer. Don't ask this young man to give a devotion. He continued to grow. He graduated from high school and he went off to college. While he was there, he didn't study his Bible. He didn't pray. He didn't try to influence anybody for Jesus. God was in his life. Oh, when he came home, he went to services with his mom and dad because that's what he was supposed to do. But when he was in college, he didn't attend. God wasn't in his life. He met a young lady there while at college. They developed a relationship. And as they were dating, he'd bring her home to visit mom and dad. And when he did, they went to worship services because that's what was expected out of them. But when they were back at college, back at the university, they didn't attend. They didn't worship. They didn't pray together. They didn't speak about Jesus to anybody. They married. But God wasn't in that home. There was not a Christian house in that home. Christ wasn't there. Oh, when they'd come home to visit mom and dad, they went to services because that's what was expected of them. But when they were back in their own house, they didn't worship anymore. That's just a story I basically have made up. But it's far more true than it is incorrect. We're losing far too many of you young people. Even if we lost one, that's too many. But we're losing much and many more than just one. I'm not going to tell you that I can tell you exactly how many we're losing, or even give you really clear facts concerning how many we're losing. But we're losing far too many. A good friend of mine and teacher at Harding University by the name of Yakely, I asked him, Brother Yakely, You're the one who studies these kind of statistics. You're the one who kind of has a finger on the pulse of what's going on in the churches of Christ. In your opinion, based upon your expertise, how many are we losing? Brother Yakeley says we are losing approximately 35% of all of our young people. We're losing. Let's just round that off and let's just round it down. Folks, that's 3 out of every 10. We're losing. You're lost. You're lost. You're lost. You're saved. You're saved. You're saved. You're saved. You're saved. And you're saved. You're lost. 1/3. If those statistics are true and they hold true for us, 1/3 of the young people we see here tonight will be lost. I didn't ask him for the next figure, but he gave it to me. He said, let me tell you something else. If there is even one parent in that household, and it doesn't make any difference which one it is, it can be the mama or it can be the daddy, but if there's even one of those who do not attend services, every time the doors are open, Sunday morning, Sunday night, Wednesday night, they're at gospel meetings, they're at vacation Bible schools, they're at singings, they're at whatever's going on. If there's even one of those that doesn't attend those services every time the doors are open, that statistic jumps up to 85%. You know what that means? 8 out of every 10 of those will lose. 8 out of every 10. We'll just start with these young people right here. You're lost. You're lost. You're lost. You're lost. You're not a young person. We're going to count you. You're lost. You're lost. And you're lost. And you're lost. You're saved. And you're saved. We are losing far too many of our young people. And I thought, he's got to be wrong. And then do you remember that Rod stood here just last night and said, you look at the board in their youth room where over the last however many years the young people have signed their name to that bulletin board, and I think the figure you stated, just an estimate, was 70%. So Brother Yakeley is probably right on the dot. I'm talking about your kids, Mom. I'm talking about your young people, Dad. The ones who live in your house. If you're not attending every service of the Lord's church, you have just greatly improved the chances that your child is not going to go to heaven. I have learned some things this week. I have learned some things about cell phones I never knew. I've learned a whole new language. RBAY. What does it mean? Yeah. One, you gave it to me. RBAY. Do you remember? What does it mean? Right back at you, David. Right back at you. RBAY. This kid don't even know how to spell. What does that mean? I had to ask, what does that mean? What was that? TTYL? Is that what it was? Yeah. Talk to you later. Every one of you guys knew it. I didn't know it. Hey, I learned something about my phone today. One of the young people showed me. Oh, this is a J phone. You guys got iPhones. I got a J phone. I learned something about it. There is a button on this, Rich. There is a button on this that if you call me, that button right there. Oh, if I hit that, I've just declined you. I never knew it was there before. Some of y'all have never talked to me again. I wouldn't do that to Hallelujah. I'm going to forget that button is on this phone. Because I figure if you call my phone, you're calling because you want to talk to me. And I'm going to forget that button was ever there. But it's there. Ignore. Decline. Reject. That's what you are. You could be one of my rejects. I ain't talking to that one. Reject. I got a cool phone. I never knew it. I'm headed to this verse. You guys can you guys can look it up, but I'm headed there. But I need to give you a little history lesson before we get to this verse, or you'll never understand it. Way back in the Old Testament, God delivered the children of Israel out of bondage in Egypt. They had seen some cool stuff. They had seen 10 plagues over several years. The last of those plagues, on the night that they were delivered out of Egypt, was the death of every firstborn child in Egypt who was not in a house with blood on the doorpost and on the lintel. And then they got to leave. As they got out to the Red Sea, Moses stretched out his rod and the sea divided and they passed through on dry ground. That's cool. And they got to see this. And they began a journey through the wilderness. And they ran out of water. They managed to find a stream, but the water was bitter. So they cried out, murmuring. God said to Moses, hey, cut down that tree over there. And he cut the tree down and it fell into the pool and the bitter water became sweet and they had plenty to drink. That's cool now. That is cool. They began to run out of food. You could have left us back in Egypt. At least we had raw cucumbers to eat in Egypt. It's in there, folks. Read it. At least we had cucumbers and beans to eat back in Egypt. God said, every morning you're going to wake up and you're going to find a bread, a wafer on the ground. And they said, they woke up that morning and they said, what is it? And so they called it. What is it? Well, we know it is manna, right? But that's what the Hebrew word means. What is it? It's food. And they got to eat it. And in the evening, they had quail. Just come up in the camp. Would that be cool? No pointer needed. No shotgun needed. Quail just came up in the camp. They had seen all of these things. And finally, after 3 months, they come into the wilderness of Sinai. And God comes down on a mountain. He says to Moses, I'm going to speak to you out of a dark cloud so that the Israelites will know and that I'm speaking to you and will believe you forever. This is Exodus chapter 19. He says, get the children of Israel ready. In 3 days, I'm giving you 3 days to get ready. In 3 days, I want you to bring them to the mountain. Now, you put a boundary around that mountain. Don't you just let them run up on here. You put a boundary around that mountain and you warn them. Don't cross that boundary. If a hand goes over that boundary, or an animal, they get shot through with arrows, don't warn them. Don't let them come up here. But you consecrate them. You tell them to wash their clothes. And on the third day, Moses took them out to the mountain. And on that third day, things were different. The mountain, there was lightning on it, and thunder, and trumpets sounded long and loud. The trumpets sounded. And God came down on that mountain as a fire. And smoke went up from that mountain like the smoke of a furnace. And an earthquake came. and shook that mountain. And the children of Israel backed off. In Exodus chapter 20 and in verse number 19, listen to what they said to Moses. Moses, you talk to us and we'll hear. But don't let God speak to us. Reject, decline, but don't let God speak to us lest we die. Moses explains to them, God has just done this to test you. Don't let him talk to us. Don't let him speak to us. Deuteronomy, when Moses is told to read the law into the new generation, that generation, because of their unfaithfulness, is not going to be allowed to enter in. A new generation is raised up. Moses is told to read the law to them. And in Deuteronomy chapter 18, verse number 18, Moses says, God told me, when you refused to hear it, to have him talk to you on that mountain, God told me, if that's what they want, that's what they'll do. From now on, I'll speak to them through prophets. And God began to speak. And instead of personally, God begins to speak to them through the prophets. You want to know why the prophets came? This is why the prophets. Because someone said, some group of people said, decline, reject, we don't want God talking to us. Give us prophets, God. And you know what they did with the prophets? The same thing they did to God. God made a promise to them, though, there in Deuteronomy, according to Moses, Deuteronomy chapter 18, verse 18, that God made a promise. Okay, I'm going to speak to them through prophets, but the day is going to come when I'm going to send a prophet. That prophet, I'll put my words in his mouth. And whosoever does not hear what this prophet says will be destroyed from among the people. And the prophets came. And the prophets came. And you know what they did? Every one of them. Reject. And we wouldn't do that today. To a spokesman for God, he said facetiously, it's just that bald-headed Elisha. Don't pay any attention to him. Decline. It's just that troubler of Israel, Elijah. Don't listen to him. Decline. It's just that Jeremiah. You know, he can't control his emotions. He's always running around here weeping and crying. Decline. The spokesmen for God come in the New Testament. Even his apostles. Oh, it's that Paul. He's gone mad with all his studying. Decline. Here we are in 2012, and you know what we're doing with God's spokesman still? Decline. It's just that David, you know him. He's always trying to get us to do something else. He's always trying to stir us up. You know David. Reject. You're sitting right there saying, David, we'd never do that. You've done it. You've done it. But you don't reject David. You reject God. This is God's message. When a person stands and they speak to you from the Word of God, it's not their words, it's God's words to you. Have we forgotten that? Reject. He talked to us about the need to attend every service of the church. He's just a fanatic. You know he's a fanatic. Reject. Maybe it is fanatical, folks, but we get fanatical about everything else. We get fanatical about softball. We'll run ourselves all over the state. And our kids are begging us. Let us go to camp, Mom and Dad. Oh, you got softball. That's right. We'll fanatical about baseball. We'll get fanatical about golf. We'll get fanatical about vacations. Oh, you can't do that. We ain't got vacation. We get fanatical about everything else. I say to you folks, it is time we got fanatical about following God's Word. And get rid of that reject button. You know what? That prophet eventually came. Open your Bibles. Acts chapter 3. Acts chapter 3. The verse I'm thinking about is verse number 22. Acts chapter 3. Verse number 22. Peter says to those people at the temple who had witnessed this man who had been lame from his birth, who's now able to walk, and Peter says, I didn't do it. This man was healed in the name of Jesus Christ. Now you rejected him. You crucified him. But this man was healed with him. Let me tell you who he is. Acts chapter 3, verse number 22. For Moses truly said unto the fathers, a prophet shall the Lord your God raise up unto you of your brethren, like unto me. Him shall you hear in all things whatsoever he shall say unto you. And it shall come to pass that every soul which will not hear that prophet shall be destroyed from among the people. You see, folks, Jesus has a reject button too. God has a decline button too. You decline Him long enough. You reject His Word long enough. I don't like that message, decline. I don't like what the preacher's saying here. What the president says homosexuality is something that it's just like anything else. Listen, folks, he just pushed the reject button on God. He just pushed the decline button, and it doesn't make any difference, folks, whether it's the President of the United States or me and you. You push that decline button on God, and He'll eventually push His decline button on you. You want me to study my Bible? You want me to take my precious time to study my Bible? Decline. And we turn Him off. We turn Him off. Turn Him off. That's your option. That's your option. You've got a decline button in your life. There's one thing about Jesus Christ. He'll never force His way into your life. But you need to understand, He's got a decline button too. John chapter 12, verse number 48, really through verse number 50. You knew I was going to get there eventually. I told you I was headed there. This prophet, Jesus, said, He that rejecteth me and receiveth not my words, the same hath one that will judge him in the last days. The words that I have spoken, the same shall judge you in the last days. I've not spoken of my own accord. The Father who sent me, He gave me a commandment what to say and what to speak. Wherefore, whatsoever things I say, they're the things the Father said, and those are the things that I speak. That's Jesus. You're rejecting God, the Father. Young people, we're going to meet up with this book again. We're going to meet up with this book on the judgment. We're going to meet up with this book again. And guess what it's going to say? The same thing it says right now. It's not going to change. This message is not going to change. The president may try to change the message by hitting the decline button. You may try to change the message by hitting the reject button and the decline button. But you're going to meet up with this book again, and when you meet up with it in the judgment day, it's going to say the same thing then. It says right now. He that rejecteth me and receiveth not my words, the same hath one that will judge him in the last days. The words that I have spoken, the same shall judge him in the last days. Jesus is calling. And if you just hit that answer button, it's the most amazing life you could could ever imagine. If you just hit the answer button, instead of every time something's said that just doesn't fit your life, instead of trying to change the Word to fit your life, change your life to fit the Word. If you just hit the answer button, it'd be such a wonderful life, an amazing life. When Peter, James, and John hit the answer button, they began the most amazing next 3 years of lifetime that anyone could ever imagine. Peter, fishing all night long, hadn't caught a thing. You ever been fishing and not caught anything? Your daddy ever gone fishing and hadn't caught anything and he comes home? What kind of mood's he in? Oh, he's a joy, isn't he? Especially if he's fished all night. How'd you do? Shut up. Peter's fished all night, hadn't caught not one fish. And folks, he ain't fishing with a 7-202. He's dragging a net up and down the lake. And he can't even catch a fish in a net. The next morning he looks up as he's cleaning his nets, and there stands this teacher named Jesus. And this teacher steps over in his boat and said, would you push out there a little way so I can preach to these people? And Jesus preaches this sermon, and then he turns to Peter and he says, why don't you push off out there in the deep a little bit and cast your net out for a big catch? You're a good preacher, but you don't know nothing about fishing. We fished all night. We haven't caught anything. It's long past time to be fishing. But aren't you glad Peter said, I'll accept that. He pushed the answer button. He said, but if that's what you want us to do, that's what I'll do. You remember how they threw the net over? And the net was so full of fish that the nets began to break. They had to call the other little boats in, and all the boats were full to the point that they were ready to sink. You know what Peter's doing? He ain't counting fish. He's looking at the teacher. And he falls on his knees before him and he says, depart from me. I'm a sinful man. And Jesus said, you come follow me. And I'll make you a fisher of men. Hey, we've been singing about that today. I got Jake, he's going to lead us in this song. I've been singing about that today. I'm going to let you take over with the little button billies here because I don't know what I'm doing. And I don't know this song very well. Jake, take it away.
Okay, y'all are going to sing out because I really don't know this song.
Rise and follow me. I'll make you worthy. Rise and follow me. I'll make you fishers of men. Rise and follow me. I'll make you worthy. Rise and follow me. I'll make you fishers of men.
like that song. Look, look at this verse. Look at this verse. Peter, John, and James could never be the same after they heard him say, I'll make you fishers of men. If you'll just push that answer button. If you'll just push that, don't hit that decline button. You're going to hit one or the other. Don't hit the decline. Hit the answer button. I'll take that call. I'll take it. You'll never be the same. They never were. Just a few days later, here comes a man with leprosy, incurable. No one would touch him. Jesus not only healed him, but he touched him. I don't know how he touched him. But if I know Jesus, here's a man that hadn't been touched in how long? What do you think Jesus did? You think it? Yeah, I'll heal you. And he touched him. I don't know. I just think he hugged him. What do you think? That's just me. I just think he hugged him. If I'm Peter, I think that's cool. I'm glad I pushed that answer button. That is cool. A few days later, 5,000 people out on the hillside, and no one brought their lunch but a little boy. And he takes that boy's lunch and he feeds 5,000 with it, doesn't he? Tells his disciples, gather up the leftovers. And each of the 12 apostles gathered up a basket full of leftovers. If I'm Peter, I'm thinking, that's cool. I made the right decision. I made the right choice. I'm sure had I hit the answer button, you would be too. You would be too. They were out in the ship. Jesus asleep in the bow of the ship. Storm comes up. They're scared to death. They wake him up. Don't you care that we're about to drown? Jesus says this is an opportunity for your faith to grow. That's essentially what he said. Oh, you little faith. And he said, hey, wind, stop. Calm. If you're Peter, what would you have thought? I wish I'd have hit that decline button back there. Is that what you thought? You'd have never thought that. Sure glad I hit that. I'm sure glad I hit that answer button. You know what? If you hit that answer button, he'll take you on the most amazing journey you can imagine. It has been for me. It has been for me. I'm from El Paso, Arkansas. El Paso, Arkansas. Not Texas, Arkansas. And I get to be here with you guys. Is that not amazing? That is amazing. And every year I think, I'm the oldest one here. I've been watching all week long. I am the oldest one here. And every day I think to myself and I say to myself, well, this is probably the last time they'll let me die. But that'd be okay. Because it's been an amazing journey. I'm not sorry I hit the answer button. I can tell you that. I thank God I didn't hit the decline. It can be an amazing journey for you if you'll just do it. Jesus is calling. He's calling you. Matthew 16:24. And I'm through. Real quick. Matthew 16:24. I want you to understand Jesus does have a reject button. As we close. He does have a reject button. Matthew 16:24, Jesus says, if any man come after me, let him deny himself. Let him take up his cross and let him follow after me. Jesus is calling you, but he's calling you to pass through 3 doors. And every door must be passed through or you can't be his disciple. He's got a reject button too. Door number 1 is the door of giving up. If any man come after me, let him deny himself. It's the door of giving up. Everybody who's ever become a Christian has had to give up something. I don't know what you had to give up. Maybe you had to give up a foul mouth. Maybe you had to give up an inordinate affection for money. Maybe you had to give up something else. I don't know what it is. But everybody, every one of us has had to give up something to follow Jesus. That's the reason so many Christians are so miserable. Because they're trying to follow Jesus without passing through the door of giving up. And you'll never enjoy your Christianity like that. It'll never be the amazing journey I'm talking to you about. If you want to travel the amazing journey with Jesus Christ, you got to pass through this door. And it's the door of giving up. Door number 2 is the door of taking up. Jesus said, if any man come after me, let him deny himself and let him take up his cross. What does it mean to take up the cross of Christ? Folks, I'm going to make it real simple for you. To take up the cross of Christ means to take up the commission of Jesus Christ. That's all it means. What was His commission? Are you interested in His commission? Take up His cross. He came to die so that men could be saved. And if you want to follow Jesus, you're going to have to pass through that door and be interested in the souls of men. You're going to have to take up the cross of Jesus Christ, the commission of Christ. You know, a fence post doesn't lie. A fence post doesn't steal. A fence post doesn't curse. A fence post doesn't drink. A fence post just doesn't do anything. There's a lot of Christians just like that. Because we haven't taken up the commission of Jesus Christ. Oh, we wouldn't lie, we wouldn't steal, we wouldn't cuss, but we're not going to do anything positive for Him either. It won't work. If you're going to follow Jesus, you're going to have to pass through the door of taking Him. And door number 3 is the door of keeping up. Jesus said, if any man come after me, let him deny himself. Let him take up his cross and let him follow after me. Are you following Jesus? What would it mean to follow Jesus? Wouldn't it mean to go where He's going and do what He's doing? How could you follow Jesus and not do that? And not be doing that? Again, here's what frustrates so many Christians. We want to be followers of Christ, but Jesus is so far out in front of us, we can't see Him. We haven't kept up with Him. If you would just push that button, answer, I'll accept this call. He'll take you on the most amazing life this world has to offer. And guess where you get to go after you die? And all you got to do is say yes. I'll take it. I'll do it. And that answer, Dad, the way you answer is going to impact the lives of your children. It is not right for you to think you don't have any influence over the kids that are living in your house. Mom, it's going to influence your house. And kids, if you say yes, you're going to have an influence in that house as well. Everybody does that says yes, but everybody has an influence as well that says decline, reject, I'll stop. Jesus is calling. Will you take the call? Don't get that time back. Brother Trevor Pusateri has been preaching to us every day we've been here. Every day he's preached to us and he said to us, get right, church. Get right. Let's stop hitting that decline button. We're the children of God. If God speaks, we answer. Yes? He's been preaching to us. He's going to preach to you again right now. He's going to ask you to get right. Will you answer the call of Jesus? Christian, have you been hitting that decline button? Maybe you're not a Christian. And the reason you're not is because you've been hitting that decline button. It's not that you don't know how to become a Christian. You know. You've been taught. You've heard this week. You know. If nothing else, you know from this week. Now you got the chance. Jesus is calling. Decline or reject. But remember, Jesus has a reject button too. But He also has an accept button. He accepts and you accept. Trevor, where you at? You guys stand up. Sing with Trevor. If you stand in need of the invitation, you come.
Get right, church, and let's go home.